Welcome, everyone, to another great episode for Human Encounters. My guest today is Constance Victoria Briggs. I almost said, I wanted to say author because that's how I kind of met you, was through your books and through other channels that we've been able to interact on. So I guess my whole thing with Human Encounters is that we get to talk about the things that we outside of what we may do as a profession or as a daily life. We all have experiences that are outside of what a lot of people would consider the norm, but really it's not necessarily accurate because people just don't talk about it or aren't willing to acknowledge it. It's much more average because I don't think there is a norm because everybody's experiences are so drastically different. So is there anything else you would like to add to who you are and maybe what you'd like? Because I thought at first you were going to talk about a near death, but really it's been like pre-birth and post-life for the afterlife experiences that you've had that you would want to kind of expound on.
Yes. So basically, I've had some interesting experiences with my family, my deceased, and I don't even like the word deceased, so I won't use that. My father and my mother, who have both transitioned, have made their presence known. And in my father's case, there was so much that he did to let me know that he was okay after he passed on that I ended up writing a book to try to, introduce people to this subject. So basically, I guess that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about our relatives, and you can say friends too, coming to visit us after death. Now, we all know about the subject. I'm sure that people in your audience, because they are in your audience, are quite familiar. But I've found myself trying to reach people out there who are just new and not aware that when we cross over, when our relatives cross over, there really is life after life. We really do continue on. And my parents came back to validate that for me. And I am eternally grateful. So I wrote a book after I'm going to get into my father's visitations. I wrote a book dedicated to him called the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World, Auric. That's where that title comes from, because once he introduced me to the idea that he was still out there, I said, "Oh, I've got to do something for other people." So it's got lots of mini articles on like after death communication, angels going into the light, etc. So basically, where do we begin, Auric? Exactly. I found it.
Well,
No.
I know because even just the one in person, your dad has, and we talked about it's not necessarily like a vision, not an apparition.
Mhm.
These energies, and I'm the same with my dad. I was very, very close with my dad, and he did not. I've never seen his figure, but there are other ways that they can show not just make themselves known, but typically it's for a reason. It's that they're letting you know they're here, you're okay, they're okay, and maybe even just imbuing some of their own positivity, as it were, unless, hey, some of them might be pushing out some not so pleasant things. But in your experience, this is where your dad kind of came forward. So maybe prior to your dad's passing, that generally speaking, the relationship had to be there because mine was very positive with my dad. Not everybody has that, wonderful memories of their father, but I'm blessed to have that. So maybe as a precursor to talking about the way your dad manifested to you and made his energies known that may have been helpful to you, how would you kind of like set that up?
All right. So my father and I did have a good relationship. Unfortunately, we lived on separate coasts. He was on the East Coast, I was on the West. I wasn't seeing him much. He got sick, and I wasn't able to get to him before he uh, crossed over. And I felt very bad and very guilty about that. Um, so at that point, I was very familiar with, that we don't die, that we continue on. But I hadn't had any kind of profound experiences yet. So, and I knew that our relatives do try to make contact people. A lot of people miss it, but, they do. And so for 3 months, I waited for a sign, some sign, and nothing was coming. And I thought, okay, well, maybe he's cocooned. There's a saying that when you have kind of a traumatic death or a painful death, when you cross over, you kind of rest for a while, and they kind of put you into a cocoon so you can, be better. It's like, having a painful life here because he has some bad experiences, and you want to kind of rest. Well, he rests on the other side too. So I thought, okay, he's resting. He's what we call cocooned. And so one night I was working on a book called The Encyclopedia of God. I was living the God, I call it the God book. And I had a toddler, and I was in my office, and my toddler was watching his little cartoon thing, and my husband was out of town. And I'm sitting there typing, and this was the first sign that I recognized. I don't know how many signs he had tried to give me before, but the first one that I recognized, I was sitting there working, and my computer was doing things I can't even explain. I was using, this was over 20 years ago, 26 years ago. And my computer was, work for Windows. The Windows would be on, and the computer would freeze, and then it would stop, and it looked like all the windows were blinking. And then it would, you look like the computer was shutting down, or the windows were it was just weird. I don't even know how to describe what it was doing, but my computer was doing things I'd never, ever imagined. And I thought, what the heck is wrong with my computer? So I called my husband, who's in Northern California on a trip, and I'm like frustrated. And I'm like, you should see what the computer's doing. I've never seen it jam and then start again and blah, blah, blah. So I gave up on that work. Couldn't understand it. Took my toddler downstairs. Now, we're in California, and we were suffering from an energy crisis in California. So at that time, we had to keep the lights off as much as we could to save energy. So I took my toddler downstairs, walked into the living room, turned on the lamp. It was a regular old-fashioned, regular lamp with a little switch that you turn, to the living room, took my toddler to the family room, then sat down to read him a book. The lamp in the living room went out. Now, lamps go out, right? But usually when you turn on the switch of a lamp, a light will blow. This was something different. It was just like someone turned the thing off, and I kind of looked, and it was just weird. So I said, okay, I told my son, okay, just, wait here. I'm going to go see what's wrong with the lamp, because something told me that it was strange. So I went, I'm turning it back on, and I'm thinking the whole time, I am thinking my dad, because I knew at some point, I didn't know, but I hoped he would show up. So I tried to turn it back on, and I looked, and I noticed that the cord on the lamp had been pulled out of the outlet. That is what got the attention. Otherwise, I would have written the thing off as the light blowing. It didn't blow. The cord was completely pulled out of the wall. And that was wild. And I knew it was Dad. And I was like, okay, I understand that you can manifest and pop in, but don't pop in to scare me. It's easier to come visit me in a dream. I hear it's really easy for you guys. And, don't pop in front of me, which I'm sorry that I said that now, but I was a little freaked out, I guess. I didn't want to turn around, and he's standing there, right? And I talked to him, and I told him I missed him, and I knew it was him, right? And I put two and two together, and I said, that's what was going on with my computer. Guys, one of the ways that they can reach us is through electronics. Electronics is so easy for them from the other side. I don't know why, but they can. So he was working that computer trying to get my attention, and when it didn't work, he literally ripped the plug out of the wall. Can they do that? Yes, they can. They can do many things. They can move physical items. They can materialize items. There's all kind of stuff they can do from the other side that we do not understand. So that night, I went to sleep, and I heard my father outside of myself call my name in my sleep. like like you're in bed and you hear a voice calling. It was my dad's voice. And then I have very vivid dreams because I astral travel a lot, and I don't I may have been traveling, and I remember all of my dreams. Anyway, he sort of, I call it beaming in. He beamed into my dream. I was having a dream like I do that looked like a movie. It had a theme. And all of a sudden, here's my father beaming into this storyline, and I knew it was him, and he was smiling, and he was wearing a jacket that was my one of my favorite jackets that he used to wear. It kind of looked like a Liberace kind of thing. It was very shiny, and he was smiling like, "See," and I started crying. So I woke up. So I never got the message. But I knew, that he had come in to let me know, see, I can do it. I can do it. I came in a dream. After that, it was very easy for him because of the energy crisis. He would turn lights on and off. He even turned on my stereo set. At that time, we were still using stereos with large speakers. He would turn that on. He would turn on things on that stereo system that I didn't even know existed. He would make my kids' toys. You know how toys can be electronic and make sounds. He would make those go off. And then at one point, my husband and my toddler were playing around in one of the dark rooms on the carpet. They were kind of rolling around and playing. And my husband came down and said, "There's this big light on the ceiling." And my husband's an engineer, by the way. So he, and he could be a little skeptical about, these kinds of things. But there's this big light on the ceiling, and I can't place it. I think it's your dad. I can't place the source. It shouldn't be there. And then Auric, later, I called it my dad's MO. After he started doing all these things, turning on lights that I turned out because of the energy crisis, turning on the stereo and toys and everything he could do, he started using, finally, we were still using VCRs at the time. He would turn, and it was the digital clock on the VCR, he would turn that to let me know he was present. All right. And my husband would get a little frustrated in a nice way, and he says, "Oh, your dad changed the time on the VCR. Can you ask him not to do that? Because he's trying to get into the VCR to change the time back," right? Um, when I got pregnant with my daughter, and well, not got pregnant. When I had my daughter, I got pregnant with a child. I had a daughter. He was still doing the VCR thing, and when you're, I hope it's okay to talk about this. When you're nursing a baby, you have to have, like, 15 minutes of nursing, and I would so when I I would look up and notice the clock would say 7 p.m. and then a few minutes later it was 9:15, and I'm like, okay, Dad's changing the clock to let me know he's around, because he knows I'm watching this clock all the time. With a baby, you have to do that when you're feeding, and so he kept changing and changing the clock. That became his MO, I called it, changing that clock. So after a while, years go by, and it stopped. He stopped. Every now and then he would make his presence known by, like, one time I was sitting in my dining room and my lights went up. I was having a hard time in life at that moment. We all do. We have a moment. And the lights would go up, went up and down, just to let me know he was around. But that VCR, when my sister, I lost my sister a few years ago. And when she was passing, that VCR, the time looked like it was spinning. It would just like change and change and change. And it stopped at one point at her time, which was 3 hours ahead to the East Coast. And then when she was passing, it went and went. And then when she passed, it stopped. And I believe that was a way of him saying that, he was with her, he was with us. Oh, another thing that my dad did was, they can do this too. They can give you some kind of visual communication besides manifesting in front of you. He kind of gave me a movie. So I was in a mall one day shortly after his death. Desk. I went up the escalator. Was going up the escalator, and I could see my father in front of me waving, and it looked just like I was looking at a movie. Okay. It was very interesting, and he was waving hello. Um, so those are some of the ways, I may be forgetting some, that my father let me know that he was around. Yeah, and I'll tell you, I don't have the picture in front of me. There was at one point where he changed the sound. He turned on one of my kids' toys, and I knew it was him. And I said, "Okay, okay, Dad, go stand by this door." And I grabbed the camera and let me take a picture and see what I get. The picture, I didn't get a picture of him, but I got a picture of strange red lines in front of the door. And that was very, all the other pictures were okay, but this one, that picture. So I got a picture of energy, not him, but energy of him standing there.
So I get, that because this is what really fascinates me, a couple of aspects when you said you really were looking and looking and looking and looking, and then you came up with, okay, he's probably cocooning. Uh, I think that's interesting too, because we have this maybe sometimes very intense feelings that can push out or push away the very thing that we desire to see or experience. So it took a little bit more time because our feelings were so intense for that. I never had a desire to see or experience any of that. When my father had passed away, it was very traumatic for me anyway. It was traumatic for the rest of the family, but it all came in my direction from everybody that was here. I'm not going to get into it, but the thing is that it took, he passed in 20, no, he passed in 2005. So I was an adult, but I definitely was, still in the throes of, having small children and everything. And then I didn't see anything of him until a dream where it was very surreal. I do not remember most of my dreams. I will get very short and extremely intensely vivid, emotion filled, sensory filled snippets. Just really, really intense. And then that's it. So it's almost like, who turned the TV off? I need to see the rest of this story to understand why you just showed me this. The thing that I got with my dad was very straightforward, and it was very touching. And I knew exactly. I said, I knew it was you, because he had his cheek on mine, and my dad had a very, very heavy beard. He used to shave twice a day, and he was, I'm obviously fair skinned. My dad was olive skinned. He had black hair, very heavy beard. When he passed, and he was 80, full, thick, salt and pepper hair. So, for me to see him like basically when he was 30 or 35, and I got the visual of how he was dressed, that he was going to work. So I think he was letting me know, even though he's been gone for all those years, so essentially he had been gone for almost 20 years, he came to let me know he's ready to go back to work. So all the things when you talked about cocooning, it's one of those things where it can transcend our space time, and somehow he looked a whole lot different, but it was still him. He smelled the same. He looked the same, only younger. And the feel was the same. That bristly beard. And since that dream, I feel like he's with me every day. In some facet or another, he's always with me. I credit my father. If I have a sense of humor, it came from dad. So I guess one of the things that with both of the stories is that yours and of mine, when they pass, they do all these little things, and he doesn't move things or anything like that because, like you said, you don't want to get freaked out. I'd probably be a little on the trippy side if stuff started moving in my house and turning on and off. Although
Oh,
I do hear like I'll hear like a little tick or a little thump or a little creak There was one bowl I have, but you can't see it. It's a glass bowl, and I filled it with salt, and I'll put gems and whatnot in it or things in it, like a shell. I would hear a ping, like a pump, like if you just went like flicked your finger on the side of the glass. And it was like, well, somebody's here and just acknowledging that, hey, I don't know who it is. Hey, thanks for stopping by, blah, blah, blah. So for me, I guess, what is the purpose of this? There's some kind of association that are we supposed to be making? You know what I mean? Do you feel like that there's a purpose to this? Because not everybody has this. Ah, maybe everybody has it, they're just not paying attention.
Right. So
Um,
basically, yeah, everybody does. That's why we need to talk about it. Because people are not aware that it's a thing, so they don't know if they receive a message or sign that it's even there. All right. That's why we have to, excuse me, have these conversations. So I think the purpose is always to let them know because, I have two grown kids, for example. I try to be there for them through the good times and the bad, right? Life is tough. Now, let's say, when I cross over, I still have that connection. I still want them to know mom's around. If they're having a hard time, I want them to know. And so I'm going to try to find a way to reach them from over there. I'm not going to just, ignore them. The love still carries over until they reach there too, eventually, right? So that's part of it. When my dad, has shown up and turn those lights on and off. I was having that time. I was having a bad day. They may, but they also want to be with you through the good. I was talking about when I had an infant. It was a great experience when my daughter came along too, and he's just letting us know he's around. When Karen, my sister, was going, letting us know he was around. I think that that is the purpose. We're not alone, that they're still there. We still have that connection. And they want us to know, and they can't, they're standing right next to us and we can't hear them and we can't see them. So they have to do all these things. People think, you know, it's scary when a relative's picture flies off a shelf when that relative, like if, for example, that didn't happen with my bad dad, but let's just say it did. The picture fell and it say, all of a sudden I would say, oh, Dad's trying to let me know, he's there. I have a cousin who my aunt passed. Our mothers were sisters. And after the month, she had taken her 16-year-old brother. She was grown and married. And after my aunt passed, they were having an argument about something he had done. And suddenly they were in the kitchen and there were, bowls and dishes. She said a bowl flew off the counter, hit and crashed to the floor and broke. And she was having a very heated moment with her younger brother about something he had done. She knew it was my aunt to get her attention.
mm.
And she said, oh, I'm not going to yell at him anymore about anything. Mama's going to come back and slap me next time. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So those things happened, but she knew my cousin was aware of after death communication. So that's how she took it. For someone who didn't know that, they would have been freaked out, and if they hadn't had that kind of thing in their mind. And what is that? What's going on? So it helps for people to understand that they're looking for ways to reach us because we can't see that they're right next to us sometimes. All right. Um, yeah. Oh, my son. Let me tell you about what happened with my son and my father. Um, so my father only saw my son once when he was a year and a half. And so he passed when my son was 3. And Keon, my son Keon, we were in the house one day and I guess it could have been 2.5. Anyway, he came to me and he said, Mom, man? And I said, what man? What are you talking about, man? And he took me to the window area and he says, man, I didn't see any man. And I don't remember now what I said, but I remember Keon just saying, oh, well, like I'm kind of smiling and trotted off to play. But then I felt what felt like electricity, or like electricity went through my body or something. And in a vision, like in that third eye, call it the third eye again working, I saw an outline of a person in their hand going up, and then I felt that electricity. And I thought, okay, that's dad. He saw dad, but I couldn't see him. So then Keon, one night, went he went to sleep, and he woke up the next morning, and he says, "Mom, I dreamed about my grandpa." Well, he hadn't seen my father since he was 1.5. He didn't remember him. He didn't know him. And he said, "You dreamed about your grandpa?" I don't know if he said pa or dad. And I thought, oh, okay. And I went and got a picture because he hadn't seen pictures either. And I dug out this picture. I hadn't set up my pictures yet in this house. And Keon said, "Oh, my grandpa, I found him in a picture." He was 5 at this time. "I found him in a picture." I'm trying to get my timeline straight. This wasn't like the same. This was later. "I found him in a picture." And yeah. So my dad came and visited Keon. I don't think Keon remembers, but they're there. They're there to let us know. They want to reach us. And who knows? Maybe sometimes we're in trouble and they want to reach us. They want to give us a warning. Those are ways that my dad reached out. I have in my book, I talk about things like I have these headings under after death communication. I talk about auditory communication, where you can hearing through the ears, just like I did when I was asleep and I heard him. Visual communication, like he gave me that kind of, I call it a movie when I was on the escalator, but you can have it through dreams, and they can manifest. Dreams, I talk about feeling a presence. You may feel someone touch you. People have talked about having their face touched. Apports. Apports are gifts. Maybe they'll manifest. People talk about pennies, or maybe they'll come in a butterfly, or they'll leave a gift that is from them. Smells. People have talked about smelling perfumes of a loved one that has crossed over. Oh, here's a big one. Now, I do think that Dad was trying to reach me, although I never heard his voice because my cell phone was doing strange things. My phone was ringing and there was no one there, and I couldn't get a number on it. It would just say unknown caller. And I kind of thought, I wonder if that's him. So people have gotten telephone calls from the other side. This is still going on today. It is a thing. And my cousin, the same cousin I was talking about before, recently got a call from her deceased husband. And she immediately contacted me. So basically, she still has his cell phone. It's the same number is still on it. Nobody's using it. And she received a call from that phone, which is in a drawer, on the anniversary of his death.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So they can, we don't know how it's finagled from over there, right? It's a different dimension. They have their own science and way of doing things, which is a whole other show. Science and technology and a life on the other side. They're not in heaven just floating around on the clouds with wings. They're living a life. We just can't see them. And it is a higher dimension. So they can do these things. We don't know how, but they've done it. And so I actually went down the rabbit hole recently when I got this call from my cousin. And there's a whole lot of people getting calls from the other side. And sometimes they do hear the person's voice and they're just so shocked they can't respond. Another way is electronic manipulation, like my father changing the computer around. That's a easy way for them to reach out. Oh, I had the TV go on and off. That happens with my mother. When my mother crossed over, her thing is turning on that TV. All of a sudden, it just kind of comes on, and I know it's her. I mean, it's hard to tell now with them both gone. My dad was passed 24 years ago, I think. I'm losing track. I think I mentioned it earlier. And my mother passed away in 2019. And things have been going with her. But I will pause so you can comment because I can talk the whole show.
Well, no, I think you made a really good point though about the high, it really is a higher plane of existence. And I shared that book I'm going to start reading, was by Jason Paget, Struck by Genius, where he's now able to really, he does a great job in explaining the quantum physics and the spin theory of light and how these things kind of manifest, if you will. And it's multi-dimensional. And so depending on if you think about it, even in the ancient scriptures with Christ, they changed. They said, hey, they were all in the upper room because they were all scared spitless that they were going to get arrested and crucified. So all these people were in the upper room with a locked door. I think there was supposed to be like, I don't know, 100, however many there were. And next thing you know, there's Jesus standing in the room and they're kind of flabbergasted because the door was locked. Well, golly gee willikers, how do you think he did that? He adjusted his frequency to manifest his person in exactly this. It's like beam me down, Scotty, kind of thing.
Right.
And
Right.
really it is. It's you he clearly was adept at adjusting the frequency, which is pretty amazing because the human physical form, each one of the organs and aspects of what we are, from the eyelash to the colon and any other the kidneys, they all have their unique frequency range, but they all work in its own collective. So your physical biome, so you have to be able to have some pretty intensely accurate ways of manipulating your energy to get yourself to manifest. It's not like he wasn't there. He was there the whole time. It's just that he adjusted the frequencies of his physical form to manifest in that room. So I think that with being adept as he was, more than likely at the phases that we are in humanity or the way humans are, when we do have this spirit leaves the body, the essence leaves the body, where's your body? You don't have your body anymore. So now you have to create something. You think about it, if you're now in essence, you have to create and manifest whatever that is. And how you saw your father is that's like a reflection. So maybe that's not what he feels he looks like. I don't know how to explain that. Because when we see somebody does that make sense? That what they manifest here and now, if you believe in previous lives, you didn't look like this. I didn't look like this. So he didn't look like that. So now he's manifesting to you here in the now in a
Mhm.
physical form that you can recognize.
That's right.
But that's
Yeah.
not him per se. His essence is there, and he creates this vision that you're going to be able to say, "Oh, that's my dad."
Yes. Even when we cross over, um, we're visited by people that, have taken the form when we're just coming out of this life and we're just kind of waking up, and we recognize people that are there. That's not really how they're looking. They're trying to introduce themselves to you again and help you to remember and wake up, when you see them. Because it's like coming out of a deep, deep sleep, fog sleep. And, if you see just all of these, I don't know, light beings or whatever, you may not get it, but I think that if they're manifesting for example, if I see my dad when I cross over, he's going to manifest the way he was here, but that's not really who he is. So I think that's what you're saying.
Right, and I think we have to be careful with a lot of that too, because I remember seeing a program with a gentleman who wrote a book, Egyptian Postures of Power, Jason Quitt, I think. He had gotten really adept at, as you say, popping yourself out of your body. He has these out of body experiences that he could do at will. And he said he was in that twilight sleep, and he started having really foreboding feelings that he was going to die. He had some really bad illness he wasn't going to recover from. He was married, he had young children. So he was really, really worried, and got really, really sad. Both his parents he would be leaving behind. And he started to weep, and he all of a sudden snapped out of it, popped out of his body, and he said he saw the most beautiful, angelic, sparkling being right here. And because he said he heard it in one of his parents' voices, I think it was his mom's voice. Um, and he said, "Hey, who are you?" Because it was his mom's voice, but that wasn't his mom.
Isn't that
And he
amazing?
said the being, when as soon as that being realized that he was there, and the being started to just take off. And I think he may have, asked them, "Are you dark or light?" And I think that they answered him. I don't know. I don't remember exactly his words. I'm kind of paraphrasing. But ultimately, the being was manifesting itself to him in this dream state where he was obviously quite vulnerable and believed that it was his mother talking to him. But when he popped out and saw, that's not my mom. Hey, who are you? Are you light or dark? I think something like that. And it was a dark being. He said, but if you saw that being manifest in front of you, you would probably bow down and worship it as some sort of angelic, but it was a shadow. It was a shadow being, and it was all sparkly and beautiful. And it was,
Oh,
yeah, so it was kind of like he woke up to the fact that we can be manipulated. If you feel like that, that could have been his mother, but it wasn't because the story was incongruent. Something was off, and that's what snapped him out of it. So if there's anything incongruent, don't get caught up in the storyline. Don't be duped. And I feel like I'm kind of, because of the things that have happened recently to me in my own personal life, I am not going to get duped. I have a lot of people coming at me. At least one person a week tries to connect, and it's kind of like if I have any inkling that something is off, you're done. You're gone. And I think you and I have talked about this too. People just they'll suck the life out of you. And we only have so much, and people have a tendency not to be kind. So, anyway, I don't know how we got off on that one, talk about tangent. But I guess the idea is that yes, we have these associations with these good people that we've had encounters with, that we are graced with them making themselves available to encourage us to continue on with whatever our tasks or our mission, if you will, is. And the other, I think I've mentioned this book to you before, too, honey. It was a book called The Unquiet Dead, written by Edith Fiore. She's a psychiatrist, I think. And she got some really hard cases where people were diagnosed with schizophrenia, and every single one of them she found was possessed by a shadow being. And she was able to rally troops, I guess, for lack of better way of putting it, and help these beings detach from the human and move them on for their own healing, because sometimes that's what the case is that they they may be malevolent or malignant or whatever they are,
mm.
creating chaos for that individual. But I thought that that was fascinating because we have our souls and we have our families' souls and all these support systems that we have around us. Do you have any kind of an opinion about these other beings that might try to come in and do some less than good manipulation?
Well, I don't know what you, when I, do I have an opinion? Um, do they exist? I believe they exist. That's one of the reasons I'm very careful when it comes to things like channeling, right? You don't know who might come in. You have to be very careful because, there is something out there. I have had an experience in my life where I was dealing with something, that was present. And that's when I first learned about angels, actually. I was very young. And I learned about angels and started calling on angels because I was living single in an apartment. And I had this visitor coming. And yeah, I think that, there are entities out there that would like to be in here for whatever reason, and they can't get in physically, so they try to live through someone it may be easy to attach to. And people don't know that they can call on angels if they feel a strange presence, or call on their guides to help them out, or ask for protection if they're doing drugs, or if they're having a mental illness, or they're doing too much alcohol. There are ways to let them in easier. So yeah, my opinion is that they're out there. They would like to live through us. You know what? I heard a story once of a man who, I don't know how this went. Let me try to remember. I just remember that there were entities, oh, that were alcoholics, had been alcoholics in this life, and they were missing the alcohol, and they were trying to get into people. I think this was must have been a medium who was telling this story, and they were trying to get into people so that they could get that fix. That's kind of what they're doing, some of them. I can't speak for all the shadow beings. Who knows? Maybe they don't like humanity and they just like to do away with us. Maybe they're jealous. Who knows? But they may be able to, they may be still sticking around to try to fulfill an addiction that they had because they can't let go. So yeah, they're out there. You have to be careful. But I never imagined that they were so beautiful as this guy was saying.
Yeah, that's why I kind of said that, we can have things manifest to us. And I think that I've heard other people tell stories where they would be talking to, a family member, a beloved one, and it might be in an astral plane, and they would start saying some very incongruous things that wouldn't make sense that would be coming out of the mouth of that person. And then well, wait a minute, you're not who you say you are. You are not. And once that revelation with where there's a conflict, it's almost like the truth is too hard for them to maintain the illusion that they've put in front. That, that kind of breaks the spell, as it were. Um,
Well, definitely be careful what you're doing and who you're letting in. They say it's like when you're working with the other side because we can't see them, it's like having a stranger knock on your door and you're opening it. All right. So yeah, you do have to be careful and be aware that they're out there and try to protect yourself. Everybody, you have guides and angelic beings around you. I know people are skeptical about that, but you have to have the experiences to understand that this is real. You can't call on protection, you can call on help. The more that you have a belief in, I think, a higher being too, that helps to protect. You can't just say it, you have to believe. I feel like of what you're saying. You just can't have a bad experience. Say, oh, okay, I'm going to call on this. Okay, I heard that I can call on the Archangel Michael because of this. If you don't really believe that they're there, you're they're going to know you're lying. So anyway, try to embrace the idea that you have protection in your life and call on it. Call on someone. Call on God. Call on whoever that source is. Call on that protection and you'll get some help. They're not
100%.
they're not the rulers. People, they talk about these shadow beings or some people use, I don't know if these are called demons or not, but they're not the all end all being powerful over the world. The light is.
And I like that you brought up the whole thing with alcohol and being careful to, because they do call alcohol spirits.
Isn't that interesting? I had never made that
So
connection.
So yeah, so we might be. I mean, maybe if you are gonna, and here's the other thing too, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I know that there are some cultures that have the tradition that if you do have a loss in the family, that you don't drown your troubles, that you only drink in celebration and with others. So you celebrate with your fellows and you don't overindulge. And sometimes, that's just hard to do. You just get in the moment with your friends, and if it happens, it happens. But again, you can still stay protected and make sure that, hey, maybe you need to make your alcohol your holy water for your celebration. I mean, even Jesus brought in the good stuff at the end, right? Water into wine sort of thing. But yeah, and it is really important to share these kinds of stories too, because some of the things that we're going to be encountering, I think more and more people are going to have these revelations and experiences. And if you don't relax and have an open mind and say, okay, I don't understand that, but yep, I just saw that. They saw it. And you just have to kind of accept it, and you're either going to move on for it with it and learn from it, whatever your experience is. But with people talking about this so-called veil,
Hmm.
um, I think it's a reflective, I don't want to use the word device. I think that's oversimplifying, but it's almost like the veil is losing its ability to mirror, reflect, and project. And this is where the clarity is going to start to happen, where we're going to be allowed to have access more readily that other dimension that you mentioned, where they do have their lives. And you kind of talked about that a little bit. I think we talked about it a little bit beforehand, like where your dad's at.
Mhm.
Where your other family members are, and they're not just sitting on a cloud somewhere.
Yeah, right.
What is your vision of what is going on?
I really believe that it is a place that they are living a life, going about their business, whatever that is. It could be social, they can have their work, but it is a better place than here. Really, and we all the religions talk about there being a better place to go. I do believe it is better and beautiful, and that's why so many of them come through and say to their family members, hey, I'm fine. I like it here. People that are crossing over are saying, sometimes you'll say, oh my God, this is so beautiful, and then they pass and they, oh, what is that? Oh my goodness, it's gorgeous. So I think it is a good place to be. And I do believe that we do leave there to come here to have some experiences, because why else would we come here? Really? We don't start here, everybody. We come here. We
Yeah.
are wearing a suit, a uniform in these bodies just to be able to function on Earth, and live here in a natural way. So we come in here and we really don't remember or why we did it. Some of us have missions, we have work. Well, over there they've got work too, and they're doing things and they're going off other places. They don't have to. It's not just Earth you can come to, not just Earth you can get a body and go into. So I think that they have stuff to do over there, frankly, and I think that we leave our bodies in our sleep and we may be visiting them and we don't even remember and coming back. So, yeah, they're busy. To answer your question, they're busy doing things over there too. All of the dimensions. They're different dimensions. And the dimensions, when you go, they're solid to us. Just as I can feel this table, over there, things are solid. Okay, unless you're in the higher ups, I'm like the angelic states or the states of light. A lot of the dimensions are you feel them physically. They can see us, but we can't see them. Their dimension is higher, and that's how they can come in and visit and try to communicate. But we can't with them. But I believe that they have a life on the other side.
And so one of the things you talked about early, before I put the record button, was that we talk a lot about where we're at, how they're communicating with us from after their passing. But you said also, and I think that this is interesting too, is having things like a pre-birth memory.
Yeah, yeah. So um, I have two children, a son and a daughter. When my son was about maybe 4 years old, we were in a restaurant and we were sitting at a table where he was sitting across from me. And my son has very curly black hair, kind of, like he had this like big, kind of like an afro curly black hair when he was little. And he was sitting there kind of like this and making a funny face. And it hit me before he was born, before I even got married and I was dating my husband, I was getting very, very, very strong messages to get pregnant. And I knew it was coming from the other side. And it is very difficult to articulate this. It was like a presence and a feeling. And at one point, I just had to stop and say, I'm going to get pregnant. I have to get married first. I'm going to get married first. Wait till I get married. That's how strong it was. I'm saying this out loud. So I knew it was someone from the other side. I didn't know who. Someone wanted me to have a baby. So we fast forward about 5 years, I got married. And anyway, I gave birth like a year after marriage. And I remembered a dream when I saw my son sitting there behind this table. I remembered a dream I had had where I had seen him sitting at this table, same face, same hair. And I thought, oh, Keon, that was Keon. And so it occurred to me that from the other side, he had selected his parents, because I hear that we select our parents. And some people will say, well, I don't know why I selected my parents, but that's what I heard, because they have bad childhoods, whatever. But this is what I've pulled from this. Keon from the other side, in his true state, had selected. And the prompting, when I saw him sitting there, I remembered the whole thing of seeing him that in my dream as a child, sitting at that exact place. It was very interesting. And so I kind of went down a rabbit hole at that time, and I learned that a lot of people have had this experience of having some kind of contact with their children before they were born. My daughter, I saw too. She was in the dream, she was about 12 years old, and I did not recognize her until she got a certain age. And then it came back to me as well. Very interesting. So they are, I believe that we do, people think we start from birth. We don't start from birth and then die and go somewhere. We come in here. This is just a stopover Earth in a long life of who we truly are. And for some, that's hard to swallow, but it is true. And I was just thinking this morning, okay, so, we have to prepare for our whole life, not just our life on earth, our whole life. When we leave here, we keep going. What do you want to do over there? What do you want to be over there? What do you want to take with you from here? We can't take the material things, but we can take the mental things. What are you learning here that you want to take over there? And what kind of work do you want to continue on? Where do you want to go? We're learning about the galaxy. We're learning about planets. We're learning about extraterrestrials. Can we be one of those extraterrestrials in another incarnated life? What do we want? Don't just think final here, because it's not final. Prepare as best you can for the crossover, because more life is coming. That's what I think.
Mm.
And I have to tell you about my mother before we go.
Yes.
Are you
Okay.
ready? Okay,
Yes,
okay. Yeah.
absolutely.
So when my mother crossed over, she did, she's done a few things too. So I was in Virginia with my brother, and we were taking care of her estate stuff. And we were depressed, We were he had flown in with his family. I was there. I mean, not with his family. He left us. We had left our families because we had to take care of her stuff, and we were taking care of her when she was sick, and she passed. Anyway, we were depressed at night. We would go to dinner, and we were sitting in a restaurant one time, and it had been a hard day, And I went to the ladies' room, went into literally the stall in the ladies' room. Just imagine being in the toilet area. I walked in, closed the door, locked it as we do, right? Turned, and there was a note on the back of the toilet. I'm not kidding you. There was a little paper note, which was weird. Who sees that? So of course, curiosity, kind of look. And I saw a scribbling, a writing, and a smiley face. And it said that the soul is eternal and lasts forever. Smiley face. And I picked it up, and I was in shock. And it was exactly the kind of smiley face my mom would write. How many smiley faces are there that you can make? There are different ones. And hers was two lines for the eyes, not the dot dot. Two lines for the eyes, this big. And that's how she used to make it. And I believe that I call that an apport. I think that was a gift. It was
Wow.
very strange, very weird. I think they can do that. They can do that. Yes. I do
Thank,
believe that came from her.
Clearly, she had a sense of humor.
Yes, right. The other thing she has done, I mean, there are other things, but I know we're probably short on time, but she, on the one of the anniversaries of her passing, my husband and I were in the bedroom, and the tall lamp, we have a tall lamp, and it was making flashing things. And I was kind of down that day. I missed my mother, and um, I was like, oh, this could be mom, hi, mom, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, if that light turns off, if it goes out, let me know. I got up to go to the bathroom or something. And as soon as I stood up, I said that and I stood up, the light went boom. It went out, it went dark. Yeah. And she turns the TV on and off. I'll just be sitting in the kitchen and the TV will just come on for no good reason, stuff
Does
like
she
that.
still do that?
Yeah, occasionally she still
Okay.
does. Occasionally, not as often.
Okay.
It gets a little bit slower as time goes by.
Okay.
So it's not like it was. One time we were sitting in the living room and the dining room light was going up on and off, and I know it was her. Yeah, but it's not often anymore. No.
Yeah. There's probably less of a need for support or
Are they busy? My sister crossed over. I don't hear from her. I mean, I think I've had one dream, two dreams in. My God, she went right, not like 3 years after my father. And yeah,
Hmm,
I
hmm.
think she's probably hanging around her daughter. No, I'm like, oh, okay, she must have had some work done because actually they don't really have to, because they know we're coming. They know the whole story. They know we're coming back. They've got other things to do, important things to do for whatever reason. If we're into this life to learn lessons for our true self, some people call the soul, some people call the light being, or the light body. They may be doing work in that area. They may have incarnated to another realm, to another planet. Who knows what they're doing? They know they're going to see us again. We're the ones who feel stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fact. All right. Um, any last words? I'm going to go ahead and post everything. I'm sure I have a bio somewhere. If you want me to put up something different, you can go ahead and just send me that, what's most convenient for you, and I can put that in the description box below. And I know we've both been talking about having less of a presence on Facebook, which is challenging because you don't realize how many connections that you have out there. So I just almost completely got off of it and will
Oh,
occasionally post. I'm only posting like if we like I'll post this. I'll post saying that we did this interview. It's just a communication vehicle that I'm going to use to, promote the good words, if you will, that we have for each other and supporting for what's coming because I think that we're going to really see not really an explosion, but I think it's going to be a slippery slope upward in revelations for people and this other worldly thing that's going to manifest on the other side of this veil that I feel like is losing its mirrored shield. I think it's don't know how it's working, but it's stopping spinning. It's stopping its magic mirror, magical, mystical, entrancement that it has so many people believing that we are finite and that we are powerless. And that's the exact opposite of the truth. So
it's
I
so
think it's
sad. I know. It's so sad. That's why we're here. We'll keep the conversations going.
Yep. Stay protected. Get the word out. Like, share, subscribe. Hit the notifications button because you just never know when somebody's going to be coming out with some really good books at some point. Second editions.
I'll work on that. After I finish the book that I'm working on, I will work on the next
Yeah, because
entry
I
in the
think
world.
these are things that a lot of people aren't just curious about. It's because they're also looking for affirmations of their own experiences. Because I would have not even considered the things that I'm seeing, hearing, and feeling now. It's amazing. It's amazing what you can open yourself up to. You talked about tingling. I've been having things that are way more intense than what you would call a tingling from the tip of my toes out through the top of my head. The whole thing is getting lit up. And it's whatever we're ready for, it's whatever we're manifesting in our lives that we want to be able to help people manifest in their own so we can take our power back. I feel like that's what this is really all about. But get the word out. That's the good deal.
Yep. Stay positive, everybody.
Absolutely. And I guess we'll see everybody on the flip side.